I just finished reading a book titled Enoch, a Bigfoot story, written by Autumn Williams. I would recommend it, especially for someone really looking into the subject of Sasquatch, seeking to get a glimpse of possible understanding of these fascinating beings. This is a much less mainstream type of experience that was expressed. I've heard this type of experience told just a handful of times, in which it seems an actual friendship was formed between the experiencer and Sasquatch. I noticed that the author added in a ton of analytical thinking and explanations of sorts about this complex mystery along with the story itself. Her in-depth passages about the Sasquatch research world in itself caused me to go and look when this book was written, with the numerous similarities with how things are to this day. This book was written over 10 years ago in 2010. I am relatively new to this whole world, and yet, from what I have experienced in such a short time, I can understand her lengthy explanations over a plethora of material that was covered in this book. Some of why I understand her sentiment is from having seen and experienced how amazing, complicated, and perhaps frustrating this community can be to be a part of, in my perception anyways. There is a seeming dichotomy or divide between groups of Sasquatch researchers to the point that it reminds me sometimes of religious or political discussions. On one hand, it seems almost childish, and on the other hand, I can understand the dynamic. Maybe you can relate. That all being said, here I am offering a not-so-brief introduction myself, just as Autumn did with this book, which I did find very interesting and insightful. You can tangibly see her struggle with if, and if so, how to present this incredible story. And if the story in itself isn't enough to cause her to hesitate, the idea of offering a story of this nature to the Sasquatch world had her thinking deeply. I found her insights into these aspects to be quite interesting and very thought-provoking, and the actual experiences shared about Enoch were amazing. On one hand, I feel as if the whole research community has evolved from the time of this writing. On the other hand, I see her struggling with the exact same kinds of issues that people have to this very day in if and how to present their findings to the community or world. Where it seems on one hand, the most potentially groundbreaking evidence that is offered gets scoffed at with a massive amount of skepticism, then there is a whole contingent who insists that this is all a myth, and yet those same people will read a whole story like this to come back and say the same. Sometimes it makes me wonder if they themselves are included in the people that they are trying to convince that this is all a myth. A lengthy essay could be written on this aspect of this research community, and Autumn devoted a good percentage of this book to explanations of that sort, along with the overall sentiment that she has done an overwhelming amount of critical thinking, deductive reasoning, and potentially gotten out in front of every possible question. That whole dissertation, scattered throughout this book, is a worthy read, in my opinion, as it is quite thought-provoking, and she simply makes many terrific points. Here are some of her writings which stuck out to me. I've spent many years disagreeing with colleagues who are certain that Bigfoot is simply an animal, an ape. The details and experiences Mike related to me have confirmed my suspicion that this species is very different from what most people believe it is. These creatures are far more intelligent and intuitive than they're given credit for. Why else would Bigfoot research have been such an abject failure over the past several decades? Because erroneous preconceived notions won't get you very far when you're trying to prove the existence of something that you haven't even begun to understand, especially if you're underestimating it. Here's a strong statement. Ready for this one? Bigfoot research doesn't work. You want proof of that? We've been chasing our tails for 40 or 50 years, doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's not science. That's stupidity. Those were just a couple of excerpts that stood out to me, where I especially sensed she faced nearly identical dilemmas to those today, looking to research and perhaps even prove this mystery. And about Enoch, this is the name of the individual under the moniker Mike told Autumn he named the Sasquatch that he had met out in the swamps of Florida. A friendship was formed between Mike and Enoch, and not without all the trials and tribulations that come with that. There were some situations where Mike feared for his life, understandably so. If you read the book, you'll understand. I don't want to tell too much of this for anyone who may read this and ruin the surprises, etc. I think anyone who may get something from a book like this has likely heard enough. I will add that it does have a similar essence to other in-depth experiences that I have heard, such as that of Kevin and Glog, Cat Williams, Janice Carter, and others. There are not a lot of exact consistencies, but there are a number of subtle nuances that I picked up on, to where I suspect that this may be a true story. I hope you found this quick synopsis of sorts useful. And if you do decide to read this book, please come back and let me know what you think of it. And if you have already read it, what are your thoughts? Let me know if you have any book suggestions. I am planning to read The Others by Tom Powell, as that book was recently recommended. Thanks for watching. Blessings.